Hi, my name is Simon Wistow. I'm co-founder here at Fastly, and I'm here to talk about sustainability, the environment, and how that factors into the internet and technology industries, and why we are working on making things better. People have wondered why an internet company, an internet infrastructure company, is thinking about sustainability, and that's a really good question. And I think, for a long time, the mental model a lot of people have of the internet, it is just omnipresent. 25 years ago, it wasn't, but now you expect to have Wi-Fi everywhere you go. And if you don't have Wi-Fi, you have, connectivity on your phone. And so it leads this kind of thinking that the internet is this all-pervasive, kind of omnipresent thing. But we as an infrastructure company know that is not true. We end up thinking about the internet. It's a very, very physical thing. We think in terms of microseconds time between Los Angeles and Tokyo or Sydney. We think about cable cuts. We think about infrastructure. We think about power for our data centers. We think about cooling. We are acutely aware of the physicality of the internet because we are the ones who are providing that. And so when you start thinking about it that way, it becomes immediately obvious that you need to be thinking about sustainability. And there's some really obvious things about that, which is, well, can we use servers that use less power and need less cooling? Because cooling takes an enormous amount of power. And if we do that, not only is that good for everybody, but it is good for us because it lowers our costs. But then, we also start thinking about, what are the other things we can do? Like, can we cut down on data being transmitted? We measure data in gigabits per second, and we get billed by our vendors on gigabits per second, and we bill our customers on that. But those gigabits per second require physical infrastructure to go and transmit them. They require electricity. They require physical cables, which are incredibly expensive to run and maintain. And so if we can cut down the amount of data that is being transmitted, not only is that good for our customers and good for us, it is good for the environment because less resources are being used. If we can think about how we transmit data more cleverly, can we cut down image size? If you are on a bad connection, you are driving, you are in an area that doesn't have really good connectivity, and that's sort of not just within, the US or Europe, but there are entire swathes of the world where connectivity is much, much worse than it is in sort of urban centers. You can make the experience much better, but also you're transmitting less data. So that cuts down on environmental burden. And then, servers tend to last 4-5 years. When you're done with those servers, what happens to them? Can they be recycled for people who need less powerful servers? Can they be sent to people who could reuse that? If not, can we recycle all the materials in it so that we don't need to keep mining for these precious materials? Like, what can we do to make things much more environmentally sustainable and environmentally friendly? We have seen very, very energy intensive new technologies. We saw, blockchains, Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies were ruinously expensive on electricity grids, and they were causing severe problems. Fortunately, that seems to be the hype bubble around that seems to have died out somewhat. But obviously now we're hearing all these things about large language models, artificial intelligence, which use enormous amounts of electricity. We've heard the talks of sort of refiring up 3 Mile Island and nuclear, sort of nuclear reactors just to power AI. And so this is going to become more of an issue over the next year or two. And so it behooves us to try and get ahead of as much of this as possible and really start thinking about sustainability and start educating people on, hey, this is really the way that you need to be thinking about it. Because the internet is so large that even small improvements for everybody can have massive cumulative effects. And we really need people to be aware that every time you make an AI query, it uses sort of materials that are equivalent to a bottle of water, which is insane for one query. Can we protect against that? Can we protect against the number of queries? Can we help people cache queries, which is what we're doing with our AI accelerator? Can we help protect against malicious queries so that we don't do work that we don't need to? Can we make queries more efficient? Can we do queries closest to the user so they don't have to be transmitted over the internet? There's all these things that we can be doing. There's not going to be one big silver bullet, but we need to be part of a solution which cumulatively does all these little interventions that will massively or stack up massively and have an effect in the long run. There's an interesting thing about large language models is the fact that they are very slow, very expensive to run computationally and environmentally. And those two things together sort of take us back almost like 25, 30 years back to sort of the dawn of the web when database-driven websites were slow and expensive. And over the years, we've made databases much quicker, much faster, and because of that, they are less computationally and environmentally intensive. And we've also come up with a whole bunch of strategies around caching and protection, because at a very, very large scale, caching is a form of protection, because you're basically trying to prevent any unnecessary work, and whether that is blocking malicious queries or caching repeated queries, then that cuts down on work, which cuts down on costs and cuts down on environmental impact. Large language models present a really big issue because almost by definition, no two queries are the same. They are not formatted in a way that computers understand, so they're not very regular, and so they can be phrased in any way that you want, and therefore it's really, really hard to cache them, which means you're doing a lot of extra work, and that extra work is really, really expensive. We have been working with our customers for years on this intersection between caching and protection, with our ability to cache more than any other CDN out there, and the fact that we've moved our protection out to the edge and had this very flexible signal-based protection, which is not based around very rigid, regular expressions, OWASP rules, and things like that. We're able to deal with a lot more threats. And so when companies started using more and more AI, they came to us to look for help. And so what we're able to do was build what's called a semantic cache. So a semantic cache takes the query coming in and breaks it down into what its semantic meaning is. The maths behind it are very complicated. I think it is it would probably be a little too boring to go into the answer to this, but basically we can create a sort of cache key, which is based on what the intent of the question was, not what the exact phrasing of the question was. And so by doing that, we are able to cache a lot more questions that are coming in and prevent a lot more queries having to be run, because we can launch them out of cache, which is a very, very cheap way of returning the data. These companies that we've been working with, we built this for them. We originally were working on top of OpenAI, but we've now released the ability to work with a lot of different large language models, because they all have different semantics, so we need to have a different approach for them. And that has really, really helped a lot of our customers. It has been one of the most popular products we've ever launched. And so by doing that, we've really leveraged the platform that Fastly built, our caching platform, our compute platform, and our expertise in this area around security and caching. And we've able to sort of bring all those things together and build something very, very quickly, which really helps our customers and hopefully really helps the environment.